Hello, my name is Eileen Rouse, and this is my new channel, Eileen into Spirit. Thank you so much for deciding to join me today. I kind of want to tell you a little bit about who I am, what I do. So I'm a certified intuitive angel guide. I've been speaking to the angelic realm for as long as I can remember. I sort of have always had this ability to communicate with the angelic realm and just make candid conversation with them. When I was a lot younger, I developed a very close relationship to Archangel Michael, not really understanding that he was with me at all times. And he formally introduced himself to me as Archangel Michael when I was about 15 years old. He came to me in a dream. And at that time, I was going through a lot of difficulties as a child, as most teenagers would. At that age, you sort of get into this place where you're truly starting to identify with who you are. And so at that time, I was having these experiences where I would always see this dark shadow stand at the foot of my bed, and it would frighten me to the point that I would actually sleep with a Bible. And so one night when I went to sleep, Archangel Michael came to me in a dream, and I ended up in this lush garden full of these amazing, beautiful flowers that were so vibrant in color. It's very hard to kind of explain to you what those colors truly represent here in the physical plane. And I remember seeing this marble stone bench right in front of this beautiful grand oak tree, and I went to go sit down and just sort of take in the ambiance of the place of where I was in this garden. And as I took a seat, I noticed right in front of me this really bright light that started to appear, and the light just grew bigger and bigger and bigger. And before I knew it, this being was standing in front of me, and he didn't really say anything, but I could hear what he was saying to me in my head. So he was talking to me sort of telepathically, and he just informed me that his name was Archangel Michael, and that he was here to protect me and to also inform me of my spiritual duties here on earth. I will tell you that after having that experience with Archangel Michael, I was sort of skeptical at the time. Even though I had these unnatural abilities, it just wasn't something that I was brought up to believe in. I was brought up in a very religious home, so those really weren't things that we discussed, and it really wasn't things that we partook in, I guess you could say. And so for years, even though Archangel Michael and the other angels in the angelic realm were with me, I really did not try to utilize my gifts. They would just happen naturally. I had this really candid ability of being able to observe someone from afar, and just by observing them, by watching them, I was able to connect to their energy by reading their energy, feeling their emotions, seeing glimpses of images come through my mind about the current experiences that they were on. And whenever that would happen, I would sort of get these impressions from the angels that certain things needed to happen in order for them to either heal from those wounds that they currently had, or help them move towards their highest purpose. And so growing up, not really being able to talk to anyone about it, not really understanding what was going on, if this was even normal, if other people experienced these kinds of things, I'd sort of tend to dismiss it, and I just sort of blocked it away. But now here I am doing this on a part-time basis and truly helping enlighten the world. My goal ultimately with this channel is to just sort of help you all learn to become more aware of your own consciousness, to expand your awareness, and to help you develop more spiritually, mentally, physically, and emotionally. I can tell you that lately I've been working a lot with Archangel Metatron. Since the beginning of this year, he has been very active here on planet Earth, and he is really helping humanity sort of raise its vibrational frequency into a newer level, to be able to become balanced with that of the earth. And so my goal with this channel ultimately is to sort of be led by Archangel Metatron and the other angels to deliver any messages of guidance, wisdom, and insight. I also take a lot of my own life experience. I've had a lot of life lessons in this particular life, and they've all helped develop me into the person that I am today, and the ability to be able to do what I do on a regular basis. So it will be some actual card readings, which I have for you today. In my prayers this morning, I simply just asked for some divine guidance and wisdom, and I was quite shocked when 4 cards just dropped out of the deck randomly. That happens quite a lot in this house. And I knew instantaneously that these 4 cards were actually going to be for this first YouTube video. So what I will tell you, along with what I tell all of my other customers, I ask that you take with you what you want from this message. Some of it will resonate with you and some of it will not. And if it doesn't resonate with you, that is okay. Please know that that is okay. I ask that you just take with you what you want and you leave the rest behind. And for those of you that are really intrigued by some of the messages that come through, please know that some of it might make sense and some of it might not, and that's okay. It might make sense later on. It's usually how the angels work. The angels usually drop these as seeds of thought and perception in order for it to sort of guide you into your highest good. Right? And it's really about bringing things into your awareness in order for you to actually see it from your own perspective, instead of seeing it or viewing it from their perspective, because their perspective and our perspective are 2 totally different things. So as well as that, I can tell you that there will be some card readings, and I will also share with you that I am sort of in the midst of transitioning from a traditional animal product and plant product lifestyle into a full plant-based lifestyle. This was something that sort of happened naturally. It was sort of like I just woke up one day and decided, you know what, today's the day. I will tell you that earlier in the year, I did partake in sort of a new diet that was introduced to me by my chiropractor called the elimination diet. And it was basically where you eliminate the top 8 allergens from your diet to actually to verify how your body naturally responds to food. Because although a lot of us might be consuming certain products, a lot of us really aren't aware that we're actually allergic to certain products. I will tell you honestly, I had no idea I had an allergy to eggs and a slight allergy to shellfish, but now I know, since I have tried to reincorporate them back into my diet, and it's just not going to work. So I've taken them back out of my diet, and I'm mostly eating a plant-based diet now. I will tell you that the angels have sort of wanted me to do a plant-based diet for several years. Many years ago, they told me you need to give up coffee and you need to give up meat and dairy. And when that happened, I was not in a place mentally or in a place in my life where I could actually do that. I wasn't willing to be of service back then. Now I'm more in a place of being of service and using my abilities to help further enlighten other people and bring them more into alignment with who they are and how they should be vibrating here on this plane. So I first want to talk about the oracle cards for today. So I have many different oracle card decks. And today I decided to use the Colette Baron Reed Goddess deck. Every now and then I will intuitively be drawn to a specific deck that I own, and that's usually the angel's way of letting me know it's time for a new deck. There's other ways of interpreting things and receiving messages, although lately a lot of my messages have been sort of downloaded to me via my sleep. So These cards, they're meant to be read upright and upside down. And I know that there's a lot of misconception about upside down cards. Sometimes people say, no, that's a bad thing. And that is a preference. I will tell you honestly, that is a preference. For this particular deck, I like to use them when they're upside down for the simple fact because when they're upside down, what that's really providing us is it's providing us with a very strong, powerful message that is bringing more into our awareness about focusing on that particular card because it means something. It vibrates at a level that states that, you know, that's an area of focus, something you truly need to concentrate on. And it basically helps to align you more to your true north or to your true heart center. Okay, you will oftentimes hear me refer to your true north and your true heart center. Okay, so let's go ahead and start with the first card. So the first card we got was Ma'at. Which is truth. And it did come upside down. So you'll notice that in my interpretation of these cards, I'm going to give you the interpretation of what comes through the imagery from me intuitively. That is how I do oracle card readings. I usually look at the card, I set my intention of what it is I'm really wanting to pinpoint, and then I view the image and I used my clairsentient, which is my gut feeling about what this card truly represents. I also like to look at numbers. The angels talk to me a lot in numbers. They truly talk to me in numbers. And so I really like to bring in a little bit of interpretation of what the numbers represent and how important it is to pay attention to the significance of numbers. I will tell you that right now we are experiencing a lot of mass awakening on this plane. So a lot of you might be new to this kind of stuff, and a lot of you might be, you might have been awake for a while, but now you're going to become a little bit more awakened on a different level, and I'll explain some of that later. Okay, so this first card is going to be Ma'at, which is truth. Okay, so this is about recognizing that everything in life is about a state of balance, okay? And I think that right now, with everything that we're currently going through on this physical plane, and I'm not going to say that word, so just know that I'm referencing our current situation. We might all be looking at it as everything is out of balance. Everything is going wrong. But what the angels really want you to recognize is that everything isn't what it seems. And what they mean by that is that from our perspective in this physical plane, we are only seeing a small portion of what the full outcome is going to be. And from their perspective, they're looking at it more from a global perspective. They're looking at it from a much bigger range where they can see past, present, and future all in alignment. And when we are oftentimes faced with truth, it is important for us to recognize that what one person might feel is their truth doesn't always necessarily align with your truth, okay? And so what this is bringing into our awareness is that they want us to truly align with our personal truth. It's about looking within, focusing on what it is that you truly align with. They oftentimes bring this up in aspects of our beliefs, right? So perceptions is actually based off of our life experiences. What we perceive is right is based off of our own personal life experiences here on this plane. Beliefs are formed based off of the repetitious behavior or the thoughts that we have ultimately created and made them into a belief. And I think a lot of times that when we're young and we grow, we often take on the beliefs of those people before us. A good example of that will be that when I was raised, I was first raised in Catholicism, and I have nothing against organized religions. It's not for me personally. I was brought up in Catholicism, and then when I was about 10, my mother decided to convert us to Southern Baptist. They're two total opposite spectrums, but there were two things that I just did not ultimately resonate with. I think when I was a lot younger, when it came to Catholicism, I was the one child that constantly asked tons of questions to the priest. And the one thing that I could never understand was, why do I have to talk to you in order for my message to get to God? Why can I not just pray to God? That was my one thing that and I never got a straight answer. And it was just something that just didn't sound right to me, because I talked to God all the time and God answered me back. So it's those kinds of things. It's truly looking within yourself, asking yourself deeper questions that you might ultimately be afraid of discovering the truth about. And I think a lot of times we don't look at that because we're so afraid of what we might find. And this is their way of recognizing or bringing into our awareness, what is your truth? What is it that resides within you that is ultimately you and just you? It isn't based off of a perception of someone else. It isn't based off of a belief that someone gave to you. It is your own solid truth. When you can identify your own solid truth, it is unwavering. It is unconditional. It is solid, and you never have to justify it. You never have to quantify it. It is just solid. It is solid and unconditional. So the angels really want to bring into your awareness that, given the situation that we're currently in on a global perspective, recognize that what you're seeing out in front of you in your local area, the things that you are seeing, this is time for you to take a stand and recognize your inner truth. Now, that doesn't mean that you're supposed to make things more chaotic, because I think the thing that we tend to struggle with is that we're not as accepting of other people's truths. And the best way that the angels have described this to me is that there are many different forms of truths. And we have to be respectful of all of those truths, because at some point, some of those truths were specifically created by other people. And this is why I say this, what might be true for someone else might not necessarily be true for you, and vice versa. So this is about sort of balancing the scales, and the best, when you balance the scales, it's almost like when people oftentimes say, why do good things happen to bad people? And what the angels have always said is that you cannot have one without the other. It's the same thing with light and dark. You cannot truly understand the significance of the light without truly understanding the dark, and vice versa. It's about a balance. It's about the yin and yang. You cannot have one without the other. And I think that in our current situation, you know the saying, things will always get worse before they get better. And we're at that tipping point. We are literally at the tipping point where they're at a point in our own vibrational frequency that we are now being asked to make a change. That is truly what we're being asked. And so that's going to bring us to our next card. Okay, so the next card is going to be independence. So independence, this is a very big question, because I think a lot of times, especially right now in this particular situation that we're in, a lot of us feel like we're not as independent as we thought we were. We sort of feel like we're dependent on other people, other things, other situations. We're dependent on our government. We're dependent on our jobs. We're dependent on our money situation. We're dependent on a lot of things. But what this is really asking us to do is it's really asking you to become aware and more in alignment and empowered with a sense of self, okay? This is sort of the wake-up call, okay? This is truly wanting you to recognize that you are far more powerful and magnificent than you believe, or that you've been led to believe. That you have the power to change and create things and bring things into your own existence that you might not have ever dreamed of possible. And one question you have to really ask yourself is, I think with this one, it's not so much why are you afraid of being alone, but why are you afraid of change? A lot of people fear change because there's so many different there's doubt, there's uncertainty, there's so much unknown. And when that happens, or when that comes into our awareness, we just don't know how to handle it. And so we tend to sort of gravitate to other people, or we look to other people to validate our emotions, or to validate our thoughts, or to validate our perceptions. One big thing they've always taught me is stop looking through the eyes of other people. Learn to be your own beacon of light. Learn to look within, deep within yourself, and find the answers within you. You know, God has always said, seek and you shall find. And that is so true. If you can seek for what it is you're truly searching for, you'll find it. You just have to look within. Know that you have the power to be that magnificent being, and that you have the ability to change things for the better. I promise. So this is really about recognizing your worth, recognizing your value, recognizing your authenticity. I know that right now we're in a very bad situation, and a lot of us are far more constrained than others. But I guess this is their way of asking, had this not happened, you know, what's different now? Instead of looking at the negative about what's currently going on, let's focus on the positive. And that brings us to our next card, okay? Our next card is going to be miracles. Okay. Now, this card it really brings into that, you know, stop looking at the negative, really look at the positive. I think a lot of us have gotten to a point where we now feel like we've hit rock bottom, right? We feel like we're sort of swimming in sludge and in mud, and there's just no way out. You've stopped believing in miracles. You've stopped believing in your own ability to be creative and to really swim. You were made to swim. You were made to rise. You were made to be that warrior that goes out there and fights for what they want. And this is their way of letting you know that turn off the TV, right? Turn off the TV, stop looking to other people to feed you the knowledge that you're seeking, or the wisdom and guidance that your heart so desires. Really look within. Start looking at the positive in life. I can tell you honestly that I've been wanting to work from home forever. And since all of this happened, I now have the ability that I can work from home, and I love it. If we had not gone through the experience that we'd gone through, we wouldn't be living life in different ways. And this is their way of wanting you to recognize that our world is changing. And although a lot of people might feel that it's changing for the worse, we want you to really focus that it's changing for the better. What are some of the good things that have come out of the situation that you're in? You know, I know that there's some people, you know, some of my clients are like, you know, I'm getting to spend more time with my children, which is something I've never been able to do. I've had some mothers that have been like, you know, I have so much more appreciation for teachers because they're having to teach their own kids at homeschool. And this is truly about, you know, despite what you're currently going through, Look at the silver lining in every situation. What is this experience teaching you? What is it trying to tell you? What are you learning? I think a lot of times when things go wrong or things go bad, we instantaneously, we make it worse by solidifying the negative aspects of that situation. A prime example, and I'm going to share a little bit here, is that earlier this week, everything was just out of sync for me. And that normally does not happen. And it was like, you know, in making my breakfast, it spilled all over the floor. I had to redo it. Then next thing you know, I was spilling something else, and you know, my printer had run out of paper, and it was just, and then I couldn't find the paper. It was just one thing after another. And it got to a point when I had to sort of stop myself, because in my old version of myself, I would have looked at every single thing that had gone wrong, and I would have instantly said, oh, well, great, there goes my day, right? When you do that kind of thing, when you react to a situation, you're creating more of that emotional outburst, okay? And it's about truly looking at it, you know, it brought into my awareness that I was like, okay, focus, breathe. What is this trying to tell me? Clearly, in that moment, I recognized that it was trying to tell me, slow down. Be more present. Be in the present moment. Learn to focus on what it is that you're currently doing. I think we live in such a fast-paced society that we sort of, while we're doing one thing, in our minds, we're constantly thinking about the next step and the next step and the next step. And this is their way of really wanting you to just slow down, create balance, look at things from a very positive perspective, and recognize that miracles can happen at any time. You have to believe that they happen. And if you've sort of gotten to this point where you believe, great, things can't get any worse than this, then guess what? You've just created another reality for yourself that's going to sort of solidify and validate what you've just created. So look for the miracles in every situation, including the current situation that you're in. I can tell you that you would be so surprised at the valid golden nuggets that lie within that aspect when you truly look at it from a very different perspective. Okay, our last card is going to be Radical Acceptance. Now, I was kind of a little taken aback by this card, because sort of what I got was, you're wanting me to accept our current situation. And so here's the important part of this, is that you have to recognize that disappointment and that failure is a part of the process. But it doesn't necessarily mean that it's the end. When all of this current situation got started, I clearly remember the angels telling me, do not worry, nothing's coming to an end. And I say that because I think a lot of people tend to go towards that fear stream where they feel like the world is coming to an end. And that's not really what's happening. What's happening is the world as we know it, the way that we're used to living our life is coming to an end, and we're now being asked to create a newer version that is better for our minds, for our bodies, for our souls, to live in a new plane of existence that we solely have the responsibility of creating. And you can't do that if you don't accept that sometimes failure and disappointments are a part of the process. This is about, again, recognizing what is, what is it that it's trying to teach you. And I think ultimately I've always sort of had this belief that, say if I applied for a job, which has happened many times, I've applied for several jobs and it just didn't go through and I was disappointed. But the one thing I always sort of thought was, well, there's something better out there for me. Again, it's looking for the miracle, looking for the golden nugget, looking for the silver lining in every situation. But this one is really about recognizing that there is a process to everything. And that just because from your perspective, it doesn't happen the way that you want it to happen, you have to sort of align with the aspect that, you know, maybe God and the universe and spirit and angels, whatever you want to call them, maybe they have something better in store for you. Maybe there's something else out there that's bigger and better and grander than you could have possibly imagined. And that's what they're trying to deliver to you. Or maybe you're just not ready for that next transition. I think a lot of times, again, it's about slowing down. It's about recognizing where we are in our current life and recognizing that in order for us to move to the next step, we have to have fully understood the lesson in our current moment. And a lot of us do not live in the present moment. We are living for tomorrow. That is all we're doing. We are living for tomorrow, and we're not really focusing on the here and now. And the way that the angels explain to me about time when it comes to like past, present, and future, you're living them all simultaneously. It's all at the same time. Because what you did 5 minutes ago is currently what you're experiencing. Because it's all in your thoughts. The things that you think you bring into fruition, it actually creates itself. So that is going to be the reading for today. Now, I wanted to talk a little bit about the numbers. So for our truth card, okay, so our truth card was a 30. So usually when they're double numbers, I usually like to add them up to get to one single number, okay? So a 30 usually brings about a 3, okay? So a 3 is about self-expression. It's about creativity, right? When it comes to that, truth truly is living your truth, being your truth, and being in that moment. It really is about self-expression, okay? Independence was 29. Now, this is one case where 9 and 2 equals 11. When it comes to double numbers like that are of the same number, I don't ever like to dwindle them down to a single digit. The reason I don't like to do that is because there is very strong, significant meaning in those kinds of numbers. Like when you see 111, 222, 333, 444. The 11 in this particular situation is a sequence of codes that is currently being intuitively implanted in all of humanity right now. And it is a wake-up code. It is the alarm that is sounding in your soul and in your spirit that is sort of waking you up to how you're currently living your life. And it's trying to align you to living a better life, a better version of yourself, a better you. And that is what the 11 is. You know, the 11 dwindles down to a 1, but it's truly a wake-up signal, okay? So then our next one, miracles, was 31, which brings us to a 4. And a 4 is very representative of a balance. It's about a state of being. It's about safety and security. It's about recognizing that right now a lot of us are feeling very unsafe and very unsecure in our current situation. But what we could do is create a state of being where we have a balance between our mind, body, and spirit. You know, if a lot of us are being sent up, you know, wake-up calls, a lot of us feel very out of balance. And so it's wanting us to really bring it back in and learn to be a little bit more mindful about what we're doing in the moment that we're doing it to create balance and harmony, okay? All right. And then radical acceptance was a number 15, which is a 6, okay? 6 is about harmony and balance. I promise you, I cannot make this up. This is usually how they talk to me on a day-to-day basis. The only difference between what I'm doing for you and what happens to me is that I could be in the midst of typing, I can be in the midst of cooking dinner, I could be in the midst of doing anything, and they're just audibly talking to me. And so then I'm usually having to stop what I'm doing and either jot down notes or you know, do whatever it is I'm being instructed to do in that moment, because if I don't, I'll forget about it. Okay, so we're really kind of approaching a very long video here. So I hope that you enjoyed these beautiful cards and the beautiful message that came through from Archangel Metatron. Please know that unless I specifically say it's a different angel, know that the messages that come through are directly coming from Archangel Metatron. He's the one that's currently around me right now. We have a lot of fun together. And I also want to let you all know that I do have a website. I will link them down in the description below, as well as a blog and a podcast. I thank you all so much for joining me today. I ask that, I hope that you liked it. I ask that you please subscribe if you'd like to see more of this beautiful content, and hit like and share. Thank you all so much. Namaste.